In May of 1960, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was prosecuted by the state of Alabama for fraud. The charges were made up and were only an attempt to put Dr. King in jail as punishment for leading the civil rights movement. To the surprise of the prosecution and the judge, Dr. King was found not guilty by a white jury. The day after his acquittal, he preached a sermon entitled Autobiography of Suffering. In that sermon, Dr. King talked about the persecution he faced since taking up the mantle of fighting injustice and racism in America. He spoke about the bombings, his near-fatal stabbing, and the sham criminal trial he'd been subjected to. All of this because he dared to stand up for justice. Dr. King was not alone in his story, because to be Black in America is to suffer. Since arriving on the shores of Virginia in 1619, Black people have continued to write their autobiography of suffering. Enduring slavery, segregation, and Jim Crow is suffering. Experiencing racial terror for decades is suffering. Being victims of housing and employment discrimination is suffering. Being trapped in communities ravaged by poverty is suffering. Mass incarceration and continued police violence against Black people is suffering. Like Dr. King, our story is one of suffering. In the 60 years since Dr. King gave that sermon, not much has happened to change the autobiography of Black people in America. Suffering and injustice remain constant themes in our story. But like Dr. King, we too must continue to take up the fight against injustice and stand up for dignity and equality.